This week's podcast is sponsored by BOTB.com. You might know Best of the Best as the dream car competition company who have been giving away cars since 1999. Well now, as well as having a weekly dream car winner, they will have a weekly lifestyle competition, giving you the chance to win top-end motorbikes, £10,000 in cash, luxury watches and high-spec gadgets. Some of the cool prizes up for grabs include a 77-inch LG OLED TV, a DJI drone bundle, a £3,500 Sonos system and a £4,500 Apple bundle, amongst many others. Get online and give it a go at botb.com. Tickets start from just 15p and you could be the next weekly winner. Hello and welcome to the AVForums podcast for Monday the 2nd of July, and joining me on this edition are Steve Withers.
It's unacceptable that chocolate makes you fat.
Ed Selley.
Maybe it's just a really, really expensive bunny appendage.
And Mark Botwright.
Mrs. Yin Chung.
So, welcome along to the podcast. The weather's been absolutely stunning. I'm not going to complain. And I don't think I don't think anybody can complain, because if you just remind yourselves of what happened last year, the complete and utter washout that it was, I'm saying nothing. Absolutely not. I'll suffer the hay fever, I'll suffer the sunburn, because it's through my own stupid fault, and I'll suffer the heat. I'm happy as it is at the minute.
You can do things if it's a washout. At the moment, in this kind of weather, all you can do is just kind of lie there with a fan on you. You know, it's deadening heat. I don't like it.
It's not dead. I don't know. I mean, I know you're closer to the equator than me, but I haven't found it incapacitatingly hot yet.
No, Once it gets past 25, I'm done. And it's been simmering around about like 27, 28, and that's just too much for me.
I've been getting myself out for my walks every afternoon. And I mean, like, in the afternoon as well. I haven't been putting it off, being out there walking. I'm suffering, but... But then there's extra weight loss, isn't there, with the heat and all the rest of it, so hey, bring it on.
Yeah, but that's just fluids, and that's entirely elastic. But I had a moment of genuine discomfort, and I couldn't work out what was going on. I thought, God, this car has got really... And obviously, every now and again, I let my son drive, in inverted commas, sit with the car parked and, hammer away at the controls, like I did with your Mustang, Phil. And he managed to turn the heated seat on. And I can assure you that was uncomfortable until I was able to cotton on as to what had gone on there.
You want to try cooled seats, Ed? Because I thought, this is interesting, because obviously the Mustang comes with heated and cooled seats. But the other thing is, it only cools your bum. So you just get a wet bum.
Does not cool your back?
No, it doesn't cool your back, it just cools the bum. So you feel like you got soggy pants after a while.
You are really selling it to me. No, I just turned
a car that makes you feel like you wet yourself.
Yeah, I just wind down all the windows and play quality tunes at the confused burgers of Olney. It's fine.
Yeah, you say that, Steve. It makes you feel like you wet yourself, and then when you put your foot down, you absolutely shit yourself. So there you go. Does everything. I'll tell you what, though. I don't know what it is about the English media, but England are now world beaters, and. It's just getting a bit much. I mean, it's just going to end up with egg on the face, and they really need to calm down. They really need to. I mean, I watched it last night, and we're recording this on Friday morning. For those interested, I watched it last night. I was bored to tears, and
neither team wanted to win that game.
Well, no,
it was B team. It was B team versus B team.
Yeah, but the thing is, it was all the films that run before it. And the BBC did it, and the BBC weren't even covering the game. They were covering the earlier games, and they're running these, isn't Gareth Southgate the best thing since sliced bread, and they're a fantastic young team. And it's like, calm down, guys. You won 2 games against really, really bad opposition. You've got a test. And,
I think it's been magnified by the fact that Germany have gone out, and the fact that no one's really
made
playing.
My year.
Yeah, no one's really playing that well. So it just, it does feel again like one of those tournaments where
it's true. It really does feel like someone is going to limp over the line on this.
It's got Portugal at the Euros. I think it's got. No, I'm putting my money on either Portugal, maybe Croatia, or Belgium. I think. It's going to be one of those years where someone from outside the big teams wins it. I mean that England game, it was it was two teams who didn't really want to win, but nobody wanted to admit it. It reminded me very much that. Remember that episode of Porridge where Godber and his opponent both want to throw the fight? That was it, you know.
Yeah, I mean that's fair enough. It's good management sense. You know, the way that game is approached. Play your other players, give them some game time. You don't have to win the game. Save injuries and all the rest of it for the knockout game, which does matter. This game didn't matter. That's fair enough. But for me, and what just wound me up was the way that the media are going on about being world beaters and all the rest of it, and 66 and so on. It's like, guys, just cool, calm down.
I haven't heard anything like that, to be honest.
I know, I didn't see the build-up, to be honest.
Can I just say that I am nursing a mild hangover this morning because I had to start drinking to make Glenn Hoddle go away. I'm holding Glenn Hoddle wholly responsible because it just... Oh, God.
I watched the afternoon matches, and I on one side, BBC One, it was like, Danny Murphy, oh, right, fine. You know what, I'll turn over, I'll see what the Japan match is like. And then it was Mark Lawrence, and I just can't get away.
The Sophie's choice of football commentary.
Did you see the end of the Japan match, though?
I didn't, but I understand it was a bit wild.
Yeah, it was so surreal. At the end, you just kind of expected someone to do keepy uppies, and someone even did a step over. No one was getting anywhere near them. It was very, very strange.
Yeah, it was weird. Mind you, let's be honest, if at the start of the World Cup someone had said to us, to get to the semi-finals, you'd have to beat Colombia and either Sweden or Switzerland, I would have taken that.
It's got the feeling of the Iceland game, though, to me.
Yeah.
Already looking past, already starting to think, they're poor opposition. These are teams that have got through to the knockout rounds on merit.
Yeah. Yeah, this is what I was on about, Mark, and this whole, well, once we get past them, we've got this, and then once to get the final, it's like, whoa, calm down, one game at a time. Maybe that's just my Scottish side, where we think, right, let's just take one thing at a time and slow down and not pretend we're something we're not.
Well, yeah, I mean, as I say, we've now got Friday as a day off from football, which is exciting. Yes,
and the thing is, I was going to do my last bit of testing with the iPlayer thing today, and it's like, oh, there's no football, and I'm going to have to do that Saturday now, which means having to pack this TV up on a Monday. Not looking forward to that.
I've got to say, since last week, and some of the complaints that you had about the quality on the iPlayer streams,
it has improved.
There's been an update for a firmware update on the LG actually, which is meant to have improved it.
Yeah, it's improved across the board. Everything I've watched since I made my complaints. I'm not saying they were listening to us, but they have improved it. Certainly the compression rate and the bit rate has improved. That could just be that there's less people watching these games that I looked at. And I couldn't test the England game last night because it was on ITV. But for stuff I watched recently has been really good, and the colour's been a lot better, and the HLG has been a lot better, more noticeable in terms of dynamic range, that kind of thing. So yeah, it has improved, Mark.
A friend of mine was watching it, and because I said, "What did you think?" And he said, "Well, I was watching the HLG thing stream and thinking, it looks okay, it doesn't look too bad, So then I went back to the HD broadcast, and I thought, bloody hell, that looks awful.
Yeah, because everything's blown out on the HD.
Yeah.
So,
but all of a sudden, it's like, it looks like everything is so dark, and someone smeared Vaseline over the screen. It's really weird. Suddenly going back, it's amazing how quickly you acclimatise to it.
Yeah.
So that.
Yeah, I still haven't watched any of it. I'm having enough diffication with data management as it is.
Well, it's end of the month, Ed. End of the month.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know
blow the rest of it.
You saw my tweet yesterday. I inadvertently left my son alone with my iPad, and he blew about 4 gigs. So actually, hang on, I'll give you the scores on the doors.
What was he doing?
He finds he seems to be quite keen on high quality YouTubing. So at the moment, the scores on the doors are bad in so much as I have 8 days remaining and 4 gigs. So that's not going to fly. I'm not here for this afternoon, Saturday, or most of Sunday, or most of Monday. So we might be able to limp over the line, but it's not going to be pretty.
It'd be interesting just to see how much. If you just get to your last day and then just blow it all on the iPlayer and see if you can get through the game
We'll set something up, see how it goes.
Are you gonna everything now you're watching on your tablet? Are you gonna have to click like 240p or something?
No, I'm just going to make sure he doesn't get his filthy hands on it again. Goes back to his Kindle, which is a more controlled environment. But no, actually, the tablet is going to be my saving grace here, because I will set that up as a router, because that's got a 10 gig allowance in its own right. So I'll probably just nurse that for early next week, and all will be well. Fear not.
Okay, good stuff. Cool. So we've got some competitions and stuff you can win. And Mark's going to tell us all about that.
Yep, we've still got the BenQ TK800 projector, and that one closes on the 4th of July. We've also got a Samsung 55-inch Q6 QLED TV, courtesy of Hughes, and that competition closes on the 30th of July. And you can also win the Ultimate Football Bundle with BOTB, and the details for that aren't on the competition page, but if you click on the home page, it will be there.
It will indeed. So that's our competitions. Any previous winners?
None.
And the disclaimer?
All competitions open to eligible AVForums members resident in the UK.
And we'll be back with hardware news in a sec. Okay, hardware news, and I gave you a preview last week of the Panasonic FZ952. I've spent the last week living with it. It has to go back on Monday, unfortunately, and that job is not going to be pretty. Trying to lift a 65-inch TV on my own with my
Could you film that,
hand.
Phil? That's what I like to see.
Yeah, just set the camera up in the corner.
Yeah, but then there's evidence if something was to go wrong, and I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, but You've Been Framed would cover some of the...
Yeah, so I've been living with it for a week, and I've got to say, I know what Panasonic do to make their TVs so easy to use and so intuitive, but it didn't take me long at all to get into the swing of using it, using the remote control. It comes with a really nice remote control. It actually comes with two remote controls, a really nice metal, traditional side remote control, and a little pad. Yeah. I don't like the pad. It's not as intuitive to use, and it's not as nice as the Magic Remote from LG. I've been using just the traditional remote, and it's fine. Everything you need is round about the top section of it within easy thumb reach, and like I say, it's well built, and it feels like a flagship product, and the remotes feel like they come with a flagship product, and it feels like the money you've spent is going somewhere. In terms of calibration and measurements out of the box, I don't have to say anything more than other than it does what Panasonic do really well, and that is mega accurate out of the box. And if you want to calibrate so your graphs look nice, you can get it so it looks absolutely bob on. Every control you could possibly need.
What was it out of the box? Oh, was it Delta E's, was it?
Oh, it was under 3 across the board, under 3 Delta E's.
I did a B7 on Tuesday, and I'm not joking. The out of the box average Delta E was 0.8.
Right. So yeah, I mean, out of the box, you're not going to notice any errors. And like I say, if you want to make, like Steve, and he sells calibrations to people, if you want to make the graphs look really nice, you can, but it's not going to make any difference to what you're seeing on screen. Colour was a little bit off the gamut, but then a couple of clicks on the CMS. I mean, I'm not using the CMS much. It was a little bit of hue error here and there. A couple of clicks either way, and everything was bob on, bang on where it should be. In terms of HDR, Panasonic do it so they track the EOTF as far as they possibly can before they roll off, and it does that. There's a little bit too bright, sort of just above 100 nits, or too bright if you looked at the graph, but actually when you're looking at material, it looks absolutely spankingly good. And I mean, I've got a C8 and I've got the Sony AF8. I've run all three together. The AF8 just looks dull and insipid next to it. The way that Sony do it, I know why Sony do it that way. They do it for consistent, brightness across the range, and they say, or they claim, that they're doing that for accuracy. I've got to say, I much prefer the C8, and the Panasonic is probably the best OLED I've seen with HDR so far. I really like the way that they tone map. It's really, really good from that point of view, which is a shame when you then look at Dolby Vision and Dolby Vision not on there. But I've also got to say, I've been running Dolby Vision next to HDR10 on these TVs recently. There's not a great deal in it. For people who say, oh, it has to have Dolby Vision and all the rest of it, actually, when it comes down to actually watching content, whether that be on Netflix in HDR10 or in Dolby Vision, or watching it through disc or whatever, the differences are not great. They're not huge. They're not night and day. I'm not sure why people get themselves in such a twist about this one, Steve, because so far I haven't seen anything that I said you must watch it in Dolby Vision, because the HDR10 has been just as good.
Yeah, no, I've always said it's very subtle differences. It tends to be in the darker parts of the image. I've noticed small differences, but it's not night and day, as you say. I just think consumers like to tick boxes when they're buying things, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. From a full, beginning to end process, the way that Dolby does things to make sure that you're seeing the content the way it should be. Yeah, great. I really buy into that idea. I like that idea, because it's something that we've always banged on about for the last, 15, 18 years. That we've been doing this kind of thing on AVForums, is that we want to see it as it's intended to be seen, and the Dolby system from capture all the way through to what you see on your TV is probably the most complete system that we've had so far in terms of trying to get that content. So I'm all for that, but this notion or this belief that HDR10 is inferior in some kind of way is not true. The differences are really subtle between both systems at the minute. So I wouldn't get hung up on the fact that the Panasonic doesn't have Dolby Vision. It'll lose them some sales that it's not there, and people, like you say, Steve, will box tick and well, it's not got Dolby Vision, I'm going to buy the LG. And the LG C8 is an absolute cracking TV. I would still say that is my all-round TV of the year.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely.
But if I was a big movie fan, and which I am, and I'm going for accuracy and other things, like I'm interested in video editing and all that kind of thing, and these things are used in grading suites, these Panasonic TVs, so they are getting something right, and you want accuracy out of the box and just a really nice cinematic image, and I really love the way Panasonic do the colours as well. Everything just looks really natural, really, really accurate, and if you can get over the fact that it doesn't have Dolby Vision, that's probably the only thing, that and the slicker smart TV system on the LG is probably the only thing that gets the LG over the line as an all-rounder. If it was just picture quality and so on, I'd be tempted with the Panasonic. I really would.
I like the fact the LG's also got Now TV built in. Actually, it's handy for me because I use Now TV quite a lot.
Yeah, but the thing is,
I do think the C8 is pretty. I have to say.
I don't think well, you haven't seen the 952
yet.
Yeah,
I've seen the 952 as well.
Have you?
Yeah, it's all right. I like the 802 because I like the old school stand. I miss those. I think it's no nonsense. It's all about the picture quality, and I quite like that. I'm not sure built-in sound bars. I don't know. I mean, what did you think of the sound quality in the end? Because you were umming and ahhing last week.
I was, and now I've spent time with it. It's fine. It's absolutely fine for what it is. You can get better aftermarket. But for what it does, and what it does job-wise, it does what it needs to do. So I'm not that concerned about it. But for me, it's really pushed the C8, the 952. Been really, really impressed with the Panasonic. Really impressed.
It's actually a little bit cheaper as well, isn't it, the 952, I think?
It is, yes. I was quite surprised at the pricing on that as
well.
Yeah,
very competitive pricing from I think price-wise, in terms of, if you're looking for a deal, a really competitively priced 2018 OLED. Obviously, if you want to get something cheap, get the B7 because you can pick them up for a song at the moment. But yeah, for 2018 TV, the 802 is very competitively priced.
Yeah, even the 952.
Even the 952 is pretty cheap compared to.
And again, the only difference really there is like Steve's alluded to, is the stand. I've yet to see the 802.
They're identical picture quality wise.
But yeah, I expect them to be identical picture quality wise, and I've got to say, smart system wise, the Panasonic does everything I wanted to do and did it quite quickly. Didn't have any lag, didn't have any crashes or anything like that with it. So it's not as slick as WebOS. In terms of picture quality though, I think the Panasonic just pips it. But everything else is in the C8's favour, especially if you want Dolby Vision and so on. So yeah, congratulations Panasonic, you're doing things really well. But for the box tickers, I think you need to add Dolby Vision. Not for quality purposes or anything else. You just need it there for the box tickers and for people to buy your product. But otherwise, absolutely stonking TV. Really, really like it. Right, so that's a Panasonic FZ952. The review will be up this week, probably towards the end of the week, but it will be up this week. That's if I survive putting it away in the box again. Repacking TVs is an art that you need to learn. It's really, they should do a whole TV series on it, really, like they did with Krypton Factor and that kind of thing.
Is it one of those boxes where you have to lift it over the top of, so it's just left on the base?
Yeah, it's a base, and then you've got to build up the polystyrene
sections you've got to lock in. It's
I like that.
It's like playing Jenga.
Yeah, it is. And then you've got to try and get the top section of the box. And now remember, you're on your own, and it's a 65-inch box. The TV in the box is a lot bigger than that. So you've got to try and lift it up higher over your head, and then line it up so it goes over the polystyrene without knocking it out again, and then you've got to start all over again if you knock the polystyrene. But
if you get it first time, that feeling.
There's the satisfaction. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, you need to make a game of it. Is this how we approach packaging from now on? Just make a game of it.
Yeah. Spin round a broom 5 times, and then time yourself. You've got 3 minutes to do it.
Hey, I'm sure Channel 5 will buy it. Yeah. So, moving on from 65-inch TVs to Steve's been looking at some really high-end home cinema equipment. I mean, stuff that even Steve would have to remortgage to buy this stuff in.
I can't afford it.
Yeah, it's really expensive stuff. So, what have you been looking at, Steve?
It falls into the category of AV porn, doesn't it? Basically, it's the kind of things you like to look at, but you can't probably afford much.
Please yourself.
High-end AV processors. So, I've recently had in the Trinnov Altitude 16. And the Acurus ACT4, both of which, the Trinnov's £13,000, and the ACT4 is slightly cheaper, I think £12,300. So both of them are, relatively expensive pieces of kit. AV processors, so basically you've got all your connections and processing, and obviously then you have, in the case of the Trinnov, only XLR outputs, and in the case of the ACT4, you've got a choice of XLR, balanced XLR, or RCA outputs, and then obviously you use power amps in conjunction with that to drive the speakers. Trinnov kindly provided me with an amplitude M8 8-channel power amp, which is a bit of a beast, and I used the Arcam P429 4-channel power amp for the overheads. So I was running a 7.2.4 system. Although you can do a lot more now. So the Trinnov Altitude 16, and the 16 is the clue here, has 16 channels. Now, it's unbelievably flexible in terms of what you can do. So you can allocate channels in any way you want. So theoretically, you could run 2-channel at the front and 14 subs. But you may not want to do that. So in essence, it covers Dolby Atmos, DTS:X, and Auro 3D. And you can run those systems in any way you want. So, for example, with Dolby Atmos, you're looking at you could run 9.2.4, right? And I've got to add them up now. Can you do a full 16? So 6, 9, 15. Yes, you could run 9.1.6. So you'd have 9 ear-level channels. So front, left, and right, center, 2 rear, 2 sides, and also 2 widths. Sub and 6 overheads, or you could have more subs. But if you have more subs, then obviously you're going to have to. Obviously you could run more subs and data chain them. But if you wanted to run the subs directly from the processor, then you'd lose some of the other channels.
Can you assign left and right for the subwoofers?
Yes, you can, and you can also allocate positions of the subs within the room. So say you wanted to have a sub at the side, and you wanted it to beef up the rear and width speakers, for example, you can actually allocate them to channel some of these sub frequencies to those speakers. It's unbelievable. Honestly, it's staggeringly. The manual is 162 pages long, and the level of sophistication in terms of how you can set this up is beyond anything I've ever seen. It comes. I don't know if it comes with it. I think you just buy it, or I guess they assume when you buy this. The dealer will install it for you, but the microphone looks like something out of a Flash Gordon movie. It's kind of this three microphones at different levels. So it's a 3D mic, and it's really big. And you have to basically aim it at the say if you're taking different measurements from around seating position. You start obviously with a sweet spot, then you take different measurements elsewhere. You have to aim a little light at the front at the center speaker, and you have to have it absolutely level, and then it takes measurements from around the room, and then it applies all the EQ. But it's just unbelievable, and really cool things. So if you have any problems, the people in Trinnov in France can actually access the because it's all done over a virtual network, so you can access it. They can access it from Paris and then fix it for you if you have some issues or change things. And what was really cool is I could control it from my Mac, my MacBook Air, while sitting in the garden and just run all the stuff in the room, because I didn't need to be in there because I was just connected to the Trinnov. So it was very, very cool. And yeah, so there's Atmos, DTSX. DTSX is currently limited to 7.1.4. So that's the most any processor can do currently. I know they're going to be adding more channels at some point, but that's the current limitation. And in terms of Auro 3D, you could do the full Auro 3D setup. So you can do 7 channels at ear level, 5 high channels, and the Voice of God channel overhead, plus a number of subs. And what you can also do is if you have speakers that don't necessarily perfect for one or the other systems, so maybe you've got them set up for Atmos, but you haven't got them set up quite right for Auro 3D, you can actually map those speakers to a different location if you need them to. So you could run an Auro 3D setup as well from a system primarily designed to run.
So it changes out through DSP then. So
yes,
you can actually virtually relocate the speaker.
Virtually relocate the speakers.
Okay.
Which again is very cool. Obviously, you could also, if you had enough speakers or room, you could run 2 systems, I suppose. But that would, when you've got 16, well, I say only, when you've got 16 channels to deal with, that remapping is probably the easiest solution. Yeah, it's unbelievably sophisticated, and it sounded amazing. Because but once you've got,
I love the idea of how this review is going to pan out. It's going to be 8,000 words explaining how the damn thing works and goes together, and then sound quality. It sounds amazing. Conclusion.
Yeah, but at this type of price point, you've got the absolute best in processing chips and so on. So I imagine that the separation, the panning effects, you're talking about the best of the best here.
Yeah, and it's one of those systems where the room disappears basically, and you're just immersed in the world of the film that you're watching. It is the panning, the soundstage, the precision, the steering, the localization, all those things. It's just marvelous.
And for people who are listening and have never heard a system like this, this is not just reviewers just gurgitating the best words and saying how fantastic it is and all the rest of it. There is a genuine step up. You're not talking about degrees of a little bit better over, say, a Denon process, AV amp or whatever. You're talking about magnitudes better here. And when you hear a system like this, when it's done properly, when it's EQ'd properly, when it's being used with high-end components and speakers and all the rest of it, it genuinely is an experience that is removed from what us normal people have in our cinema rooms.
Yeah. It is a serious step up. And I think you also need to think, why would you go for a processor? Why not get a receiver or something like that? The ability to pick and choose high quality amplification that has that kind of headroom, that makes a massive difference too. So not only is the processor itself very skilled in terms of creating a 3-dimensional sound field, but also you have that additional headroom with the amps, and the two combined just deliver. Sometimes you can start doling out loads of flashy words, but really there are times when it's a shame people can't hear it for themselves, because then they'll understand just the difference it can make.
Yeah.
But it just makes watching a film. Was it George Lucas who said it's 50% of a movie is the sound, and it just makes the viewing experience completely different when the sound system's that good.
Yeah.
Because it's just watching something like Jurassic Park. The T-Rex attack is just visceral.
Yeah.
in the experience,
because you've got so much headroom and you've got so much on and off power. The transient changes sometimes it's phenomenal. It's the stuff that actually hits you in the chest. So I know exactly where you're coming from on that one, Steve, and it's something I've never been able to replicate in my room, and I know to replicate that I'd have to win the lottery. You're talking AV processors and amps of this level, and then married in with speakers and all the rest of it, you're talking a minimum spend of what, 80 to 100,000.
Yeah.
And that's the type of system you're talking about here. So it's the type of stuff that, yes, if you won the lottery, this is what you're going. But for us, normal people, it's a pipe dream. It's one of these things that we're never going to own. But if you ever get the opportunity to listen to them or hear them or grab it with both hands, because it really is an experience. So that's the Trinnov. What about the
Acurus ACT4 is similar. Again, AV processor. It's got a choice of XLR or RCA outputs rather than just XLR, which is the case with the Trinnov. It's got similar. I mean, these things all basically look like black boxes with usually either two knobs or one knob, one for volume, one for input selection. The Trinnov has one knob that does both jobs.
They're designed to go into a 19-inch rack, basically. And
they are. Yeah,
these
are obviously pro-install kit essentially. And with the ACT, I've got to say, ACT it's a nice looking bit of kit. Both of them are nice looking bits of kit, actually. I mean, when you're paying this kind of money, you want solid build. They're built well. They look really pretty, even though they're going to probably be in another room hidden away in an equipment rack. If they were on display, they actually look really nice. Particularly, I really like the ACT's got a lovely touch screen on the front, which looks very cool. Some really nice graphics, which really appeals to me as a sort of just for fiddling around with and looking nice in the equipment rack. But this is 13 channels, so it's not quite as hasn't got quite as many channels as the Trinnov. So you can run Atmos. It does Atmos and DTSX. It doesn't support Auro 3D. And you can run Atmos or DTSX, and you can run DTSX in 7.1.4 again, because that is the limitation currently. And you can run Atmos. For what I've managed to work out so far, I can do 7.1.6, that would be the full 13 channels, wouldn't it? Yes, that's that.
Well done, Carol Vorderman.
Yeah, you can run that, but it doesn't give you the option of running 9.1.4. So there's no width channels support in this system. So it's basically designed for 7 channels plus sub plus 6 overhead channels if you want to do that. You can also do 7.1.4 as well if you wanted. Depending on the size of your room, whether you need 6 channels overhead is debatable. In my room, I think it would be overkill. But it's nice to have the option, I guess, in particular when you're doing custom installs. This one actually, in terms of so the Trinov's EQ system is obviously proprietary. It was developed by Trinnov. Their history goes back to the French broadcasters, and that's where they come from. So it's a very pro system. This is I think a system. It's sort of proprietary, but based around using other third-party Room EQ software, so like REW. If you've got something like that, you can buy a third-party software with a calibrated mic, and it works off of that. So it's probably not as sophisticated, in my opinion, but I've never seen anything as sophisticated as the Trinnov. I mean, even the Datasat, which was pretty sophisticated, given that it had a professional cinema background. I think the Trinnov beats even that in terms of the sheer level of flexibility and sophistication involved in it. I mean, it just, even in the review, I was just barely scratching the surface of what the Trinnov could do particularly in terms of things like crossovers. The ACT4 is a similar kind of approach, but not quite, in my opinion, as sophisticated. But still sounds amazing. I used the same amplification, so it was just a question of the processing and of the signal that was the difference between the two. And I'd give the edge to the Trinnov, but I mean both these that we're talking about, that level of, as you were saying, Phil, that level of performance that's where you are a rarefied level of performance that both of them would deliver a truly what's the word? A truly exceptional audio experience with cinema, particularly with film soundtracks. You can use it with music as well, but these are really designed to deliver a multi-channel experience, and both of them are quite exceptional. I'm still fiddling around with the ACT, but so far I've been impressed. I think given they're almost the same price, my preference would probably be the Trinnov. I just think the level of, like I said, the level of sophistication, the level of flexibility, the amount that you can do with it is just off the charts.
I'm not going to say I'm envious of the time you've been
spending. Well, the thing is, you have to give
stuff.
it back there. That's annoying.
I know that's it. It's once you've lived with something and then you have to give it back. That's and I've had some high end stuff like that come through before, and it's heartbreaking when it goes back, and you think I'm never going to be able to own a bit of kit like that.
Yeah, I had the Datasat for 3 months, and it was really painful when that went away.
Yeah, I think the question everybody wants to know is, what's the repackaging like?
thankfully relatively simple in the case of these things, because they just actually the ACT is not even in any box. It's just they just delivered it at the back of a car. It's been around the houses a bit by the state of it. But no, it's they're if you're lucky enough to be in this situation where we're looking at a dedicated home cinema with this kind of level of processing, the experience you can get can be quite exceptional.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a dedicated built design space where you can take full advantage of this. This is not for using with a living room system or even a small room AV setup. This is for a dedicated room, a nice big room where you're going to be able to take advantage of the dynamics on offer and what the systems can do. But my God, I know what fun you've been having.
Up the Trinnov ladder, because the 16, the Altitude 16 is not even their flagship. It's the Altitude 32. So that's got 32 channels, and that you could use that in a professional cinema environment effectively. If you wanted to build a big enough home cinema that was really big, you could go full size cinema basically. That's what these things are aimed at. A big home cinema build, the kind of thing where you've got maybe 5 or 10 seats and it's it's a dedicated room with all the trimmings. I gotta say they are very cool pieces of kit that I'm on. It's a real pleasure to have the opportunity to play with something like this and to listen to it. And the only problem is obviously sometimes it's better not to have had something, because then you have to let go of it.
Definitely aspirational stuff that you're talking about there, but yeah, I'm not envious at all. Right, Ed, beat that.
I can't. Actually, I've been on a bit of a value kick. I say value kick. All things are relative in hi-fi terms, but I am still peeking around all-in-one systems. Now, the last one prior to this next review coming out, name Unity Star, it's marvellous, but it is $3,500. So, whilst in comparison to what Steve's been up to, it's, I think that's pretty strong value, but nonetheless, it's still a reasonable sum of money. However, Elipson, who ironically I went to see, but after I'd actually written this review, they have been producing the Music Center for some years, so much so that we actually reviewed it in its original form a couple of years ago. But they've given it a bit of a refresh for 2018. First of all, they've put it into a black finish, because black is the new black. And then they've looked at their streaming options and gone, do you know what? Let's just fit a Chromecast. And that's a very, very sensible thing to do. And the result is a product that's under £1,000. I think it's $899. And it delivers genuinely impressive performance and functionality at that price. And it does that while still being quite a cool object visually and still having the scope to work with other inputs as well. There's an optical connection on there. It has DAB, so you aren't simply reliant on internet radio from the Chromecast. And it just one of those products where, provided that you pay a modicum of attention to the speakers that you partner it with, it sounds unreasonably good, I think would be the sort of feedback from that. So it's one of those ones where if you aren't looking to spend several £1,000s on an all-in-one system, there are still products out there which deliver on this sort of developing theory of ours that, if I had to try and assemble a piece of a separate system to do all the same bits and bobs for the same price, I'd struggle and it would look a mess. And, other than having a greater sense of upgradability, it just wouldn't be quite the same thing. And then upcoming reviews, I've been also trying to look at things that aren't insanely priced. We've got the Qtist from Chord Electronics, which is the home-friendly take on the technology that goes into the Hugo 2 at a more affordable price. We've got the Rega Planar 1 Plus, which is Rega's first plug-and-play turntable with a phono stage on board. So it really is designed to be entirely user-friendly for beginners. And a £160 pair of speakers from Monitor Audio, which are I think they look great. I suspect that may be something which is picked up on in the comments, because I don't think everyone will agree with me. But I can assure you that for 160 quid, they sound great. So yeah, lots to look forward to as well.
Okay, and seeing as it's the end of the month, you know the drill. Your playlists, album, and so on.
Right, well, I'll save you some time. Album of the month is the same as vinyl release of the month. And it is roughly the distance of the Earth to the Sun. Now, you're going to have to forgive me here, because I know it carries with it a stigma, but this is a jazz album. Actual, full-fat, not pissing about jazz. It's by an artist called Kamasi Washington, and it's called Heaven and Earth. And you'll need to strap yourself in for this, because it's 2 hours and 24 minutes long, with tracks that are, generally speaking, in the...
How is that delivered then? What format is that? Like a triple album or something?
Yes. It's on a lot of vinyl, and I'll cover that in a second. But it's all on the streaming services. You know, essentially, we're dealing with tracks that are the shortest track on the album skips by in 5 minutes and 44 seconds, but most of them are towards the 10-minute mark. Now, the thing is, jazz gets a lot of bad rap, because when there's always artists pushing the boundaries, and if you push the boundaries of any genre far enough, it sort of ceases to be music. That isn't what's going on here.
What kind of jazz is it?
Big band, classic instruments.
Is there any jazz flute?
But is it with vocals, or is it, like
there are some vocals, but it's mainly massed vocalists rather than solo vocalists.
Is it soulful jazz?
Not really. It's sort of, you have to listen to it, and I would suggest just letting it roll in the background initially, and you'll find yourself being pulled into it. I wouldn't be recommending this if I didn't think it had a degree of mainstream appeal. It is beautifully done, beautifully performed.
Remind me of the name again.
Kamasi Washington is the artist. The album is called Heaven and Earth. And the reason it's my vinyl release of the month, as you might imagine, 2 hours and 24 minutes on vinyl is quite a lot of records. But if you're brave and you have access to a scalpel, there's even more.
What?
Yes.
What?
So yeah.
Can't do any more on that, otherwise we'll get hit by a copyright. But yeah, it sounds different, Ed.
It's excellent. Just let it happen to you, and I've been, and also for hot weather like this, it's great. I'm not there's a lot of jazz that I do like, but equally there's loads and loads of it where I listen to it and I go, that's shit. There's enough musical sensibility, there's enough quality, there's enough skill in this for me to think that it's worth a listen for lots of people. It's on all the major streaming services. Go for it, Steve.
I was going to say, so this is your album and vinyl release of the month?
Yes.
And sorry, when you said if you got a scalpel, what did you mean, sorry?
Well, there's an extra record in there.
Where?
In the sleeve body itself.
Oh right, hidden away.
Yeah.
Is this
so
this is another one that you've got to damage the packaging, Ed? This must have been really bad for your OCT.
I haven't ordered it yet. It's a lot of money, and I don't have any.
How much is it? I was going to ask that question next.
Let's just work that out. I'll find that for you, because it's a good question. Washington vinyl. Yeah, there we go. It's okay. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. From Amazon, it's £43.
It's actually less than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I was expecting something ridiculous.
Yeah, that doesn't seem too bad, actually.
Well, I mean, let's face it. We've seen some very spectacular pieces of Blu-ray packaging recently. As far as I'm concerned, it's worth it. Just listen to it on a streaming service. That's not going to cost you anything. There is a CD release, obviously, as well. And it's something a bit different. I tend to swing towards the electronic end of things, or occasionally a bit of rock here and there. This is something a bit different. I think it's worth considering on its own merits. I have thoroughly enjoyed listening to it, especially on these nice sunny days. It's good to drive to as well, because a lot of music that I listen to generally ends up with me driving like my hair is on fire, and this doesn't do that. So that's good.
So you're turning into jazz club guy then?
Do you know what his actual name is?
No.
From the
that's a good pub quiz. Good pub quiz
What
question.
Is the name of the jazz man in the Fast Show is Louis Balfour. Louis Balfour.
Right, I'm making a note of that.
So yes, as you say, pub quiz there. But I know it's because of things like that jazz does get, and there are. I mean, dinner jazz, I believe, is named because it puts you off your dinner, and so on and so forth. Trust me when I say that this isn't that. This is a group of sensationally talented musicians performing beautiful work. And I have no difficulty at all in recommending it in the way I have. And then playlist, I briefly fired up Tidal, which is why I probably don't have any data left. And the British indie playlist. Lots of different genres, short tracks, long tracks, some you'll like, some you'll hate. It's a lovely pointer to get yourself interested in some more new music. Nothing more complicated than that.
Okay, that's my weekend listening sorted there. Thanks very much, Ed, while I try and park this TV.
The idea of you manhandling a giant television to jazz, that's modern art. Right there.
Again, please, film it.
That's an installation of the tape, that is.
I'm pretty sure that Mr. Washington would waive the royalties if that was done properly.
Okay, we might consider that one. Anyway, we'll
shoot
back
it in 4K, ultra slow-mo, just fantastic.
Yeah, okay. Movie news is next. Right, okay, movie news and reviews. I don't have any reviews because there's nothing really worth going to see them at the cinema, which is a shame because I kind of felt like going this week. I needed to get out and I didn't have anything to go and watch. So what's coming up this week at the cinema that we can go and watch, Steve?
Okay, well, this week we have, again, not a classic week. I suppose there's counter-programming going on. If it's a World Cup, people don't want to put films out at the cinema, which I guess is why Ant-Man and the Wasp was opened in America this weekend, but doesn't open here until the beginning of August. I think they're probably avoiding the World Cup period. So we got The First Purge, which is a prequel to The Purge. I've got to say, I've recently watched the Purge movies, the first three, The Purge,
Anarchy, you've got, and Election. Yeah. I like them.
Yeah, no, I really like them. Really good. I really got into it. So I'm kind of looking forward to this, actually. I'll probably get it on disc or let my friend buy it on disc because it was his discs I watched and then check it out. But I did enjoy The Purge and the other two films. And so this is quite interesting for me. There's also Terminal, which looks interesting, starring Margot Robbie. Kind of sci-fi thriller, I suppose. That's the way of describing it. There's In Darkness, which is a thriller that was, I think, it's co-written and produced by Natalie Dormer, who was in Game of Thrones, among many other things. I think she actually produced this and co-wrote it and was involved in it quite heavily. She stars in it too. I think it was directed by and co-written by her partner. So that looks interesting. It took them, like any independent production, it took years to get the money together to make it. But it's a thriller starring her. And also there's Mary Shelley, which is a film about Mary Shelley, obviously, who wrote Frankenstein. I guess about the creation of the novel and how she wrote it, the circumstances in which it was written. I think there was a film by Ken Russell that covered a similar subject. I think it was called Frankenstein something or other. But that one covered Frankenstein Unbound or something like that. But this covers some subject. It has Elle Fanning playing Mary Shelley, who was only 17 when she wrote Frankenstein, which is
enough to make you feel gloriously inadequate, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You're thinking like, well, you wrote one of the most influential novels of all time.
Well, to be honest, I had a similar moment last night. I was watching that documentary about Napoleon, and then he says, "Oh yeah," and then he just turned 27, and you just think, "Oh God,
Emperor of most of the world." At that point, well done. Was that documentary good, by the way? Because I recorded it, but I haven't got around to watching it yet.
It's good, but you can clearly tell the chap who does it really likes Napoleon. And so therefore it's very much like, kind of, oh yeah, and a lot of people have said that this atrocity of war where he slaughtered all the people of the town folk, was bad. But, in many ways it was kind of par for the course. Anyway, let's get back onto Napoleon.
All right, okay. So those are the films opening this week. I'll say nothing major, but some interesting little things in there if you do fancy a trip to cinema, if you want to sit in some air conditioning for a while. Okay.
I want some ice cream, Ben & Jerry's, that's what I want.
You buy Ben & Jerry's in the supermarket,
Don't know. It just tastes better when you're sitting in the cinema watching.
I have an irrational. Actually, it's not an irrational. I have a rational hatred of Ben & Jerry's. I just giant faceless corporations pretending to be small and friendly gets on my significant tits.
But that ice cream's nice. So
no, it's got bits in it.
Yeah, that's what
I'll
I
never
like.
forget that
cheesecake.
That time-lapse shot of you scoffing away through a tub of ice cream.
Yes, it was time-lapse, so it did look like I was sitting scuffing my face.
It was so funny.
It wasn't in real time.
It was Ed drinking beer and Phil hovering through a tub of ice cream.
Yeah. You probably should. I should time lapse myself last night watching the football, just getting increasingly despondent at the Hoddleisms coming out. But
yeah, right. So we need to do films of the month. So can you remind me what came out this month, Steve? Because
not the only thing I've seen. Well, you've seen 2 films this month. You've seen Jurassic World and Ocean's 8, I think, and I've only seen Jurassic World. So it's a short list.
World, yeah. Jurassic World. It wasn't great, but it was a Jurassic Park film. Actually, we did get your thoughts on it. We got my thoughts on it, but not yours. What did you think?
Oh yeah, because I hadn't seen it at the time. What do I think of it? Well, I enjoyed it for what it is. I mean, it involves dinosaurs. That's always good in my book. The characters are holdover characters from the previous film. I actually thought Jurassic World, the one before, was really quite good. I thought it surprised me enough with the way it rebooted the whole franchise, stayed relatively faithful to the original films, but added new features, and also even had was jokey about itself. The whole thing with the guy says about the T-shirt and saying that first part was legit. It's like, okay, they were prepared to make fun of themselves. They added in some new features and new characters, and I thought actually it worked really well. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. This continues that trend. I mean, they've obviously thought, right, what do we do next? Well, we need to get off the bloody island. So that's the main idea behind it. Let's move it on a bit. I can see there's some little plot points in there that I guess suggest where we might be going with the third film. So I like the idea that they did try at least do something different. And I quite like the idea of sort of being stuck in a big house with a bunch of dinosaurs chasing after you. That was quite exciting, and the director's really good. But yeah, there comes a point, and given I'd watched all the other 4 films prior to this, I was a bit dinosaured out.
Yeah, bit déjà vu, isn't it? It's a bit yeah. Which was my problem with it. Again, for what it was hokum. It was popcorn stuff, and you're supposed to just switch off and watch it. And in that light, yeah, fair enough. It was just, for me, there wasn't much originality in there, and it was almost like, and somebody said this to me, and I thought, yeah, it's almost like they went through the cutting room floor and picked up the scenes that they'd cut from the first film, or ideas they'd cut from the first film. So
I thought it was a bit of that to it. I mean, it's well made, it's entertaining. And I think there's potential to do something very different with the next film.
I hope they do.
I hope is the case. I hope they certainly set it up so that there is room now for them to do something quite different than what because let's be honest, we've had 4 films where people have been chased around our island by dinosaurs, and now we've had a film where they've been chased around a house by dinosaurs. But I think there's an opportunity to do something very, very different, and I don't think there were some little things they laid in to the plot in this film in Fallen Kingdom. That suggests the possibility of something quite radical. And if that's the case, then I could be up for that. Plus, Colin Trevorrow is back directing it, who directed Jurassic World, because obviously he got booted off of episode 9. And I think obviously they've had a sort of a trilogy plan from the beginning of trying to do different things. So, I enjoyed it. It's a solid 7-8 entertainment, well made, 2 hours at the movies, which is fine these days. What more can you ask for?
Okay, let's see what's coming out on Blu-ray and 4K UHD this week, Steve.
There are some interesting films, actually. There is Game Night, which I actually wanted to go and see at cinema. I didn't get around to it because apparently it's very good. It's basically a group of couples meet together every week to play, have a game night, play games, and then one of them's, I think their brother or something like that, basically gets them into this. That seems like a bit like, you've seen the film The Game with Michael Douglas. It's a bit like that, only more comedic, where they're playing this game, but it might be real. They don't know if it's real or if it's a game, and it all gets quite sinister and dangerous, but also in a comedic sense. And I thought it looked really interesting, and it had really good reviews when it came out. And so I would quite like to see this, actually. I think it's got a good cast, Jason Bateman in it, Rachel McAdams. And yeah, I think this is a film that actually piqued my interest, and I'll either get it on disc or I'll watch it on streaming when it becomes available. But I definitely will check this out at some point. So that's Game Night. Also, You Were Never Really Here, which is Lynn Ramsey's new film. Lynn Ramsey, maybe we need to talk about Kevin, which I think is brilliant. So I haven't seen it yet, but again, it's kind of a thriller, but not, as you expect with Lynn Ramsey, not as simple as that. Stars Joaquin Phoenix. Again, it's had fantastic reviews, and I'm interested. Now we've got Ladybird, which was written and directed by Greta Gerwig, and who was nominated for an Oscar. In fact, the film was nominated as well, and stars Saoirse Ronan, and is basically a story about her teenage years, trying to get out of a small town. Which has had excellent reviews, and looks very interesting. And finally, The Endless, which I have to say I don't know anything about. What does that involve?
It's a film.
Yeah, it seems to be a film about a group, a cult. I'll tell you what, this is the IMDb. Two brothers return to the cult they fled from years ago to discover that the group's beliefs may be more sane than they once thought. Oh, actually, that sounds quite interesting. I don't know any of the people involved in it, though.
Okay, it's maybe a miss then on that one. Right, so
well,
UHD...
read Kaz's review and then make your own mind up, I guess.
Yeah, do that. Right, 4K UHDs.
Yes. So in terms of, we've got a couple of some big releases this week. Mission Impossible, the 5-disc box set. So if you want to get all the Mission Impossible movies in time for the new one that's coming out in July, Mission Impossible Fallout, you can get all 5 of them in the new box set. So that's Mission Impossible 1, 2, 3, and also Rogue Nation and
Rouge Nation, Steve.
Rouge Nation. That was the 5th one, and
Ghost Protocol.
Ghost Protocol. Thank you. Yes, that was the other one. And they've all got new. Certainly the early films have got new cleaned up transfers. They were shot in film. So they got new 4K transfers, which look nice. Plus, also, I believe some of the early disc releases didn't have lossless soundtracks. So again, they may not have Dolby Atmos, but they've got lossless soundtracks now. So you get a bit of an upgrade there. So if you're a fan of those films, worth picking up. They also use Dolby Vision as well on all those discs.
And Kaz got them all in works at the minute, so Kaz is working on those. So the reviews should be out hopefully by the time you listen to this.
I've only ever seen the first 2.
Yeah.
Just never appealed to me.
I like them. I really enjoyed them, actually. I like the way that they used to use different directors each time, gave it different spins. So first one was Brian De Palma, so you had kind of a thriller with a lot of it was quite a finely tuned thriller by De Palma. Then you had John Woo, so it was a big John Woo shootout movie, and then it was J.J. Abrams, so it was kind of like a typical Abrams film where it starts at halfway through towards the end and then flashes back. Fourth one was Brad Bird. It was a really fantastic piece of cinema with the whole bit on the outside of the Burj Khalifa, and then it was Christopher McQuarrie, who also did Jack Reacher with Tom Cruise, which is also out on 4K disc this week. And I thought he delivered a really good movie, but he's actually directing Fallout, so it's kind of a direct continuation, I think, from Rouge Nation with Fallout, and the same director behind the camera. So, yeah, if you're a fan of Tom Cruise, it's a good week because you've got 5 Mission Impossible movies and Jack Reacher on 4K disc.
Was that the first one?
Yes, the good one.
The good one.
Yeah, the good one. Also announced for 4K disc, apparently in mid-September, it's going to be Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. So that's going to get a really quick turnaround coming out.
Is that usually not a sign that it hasn't exactly?
Oh, it's done well. Don't worry, it's done well at the box office. Yeah, it's done very well. It's already made 750 million.
Right.
And he opened America last weekend.
Done better than Solo, anyway.
Everything's done better than Solo. Solo internationally, Solo has died an absolute death. Solo should be, by the way, out late August. That's of interest. Right. Speaking of Star Wars, it was announced this morning. End of July, Rebels season 4, which I am genuinely looking forward to.
Okay, I've still got 2 and 3 to watch.
Well,
I've got the disc. It's just
if you want to recapture your love of Star Wars, Rebels will do it.
Right.
Because Dave Filoni knows what he's doing.
I've got 2 and 3, like I say, to watch, so I'll get them done at some point. Right, so discs of the month. Well, I've only bought 2 this month.
They were
Die Hard and Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, well, okay.
So Saving Private Ryan for me is disc of the month, and that is a June release, so that was
going to be my disc of the month too. I think it looks and sounds absolutely incredible. It's a really, really good transfer from a 4K master that was from restoration with a Dolby Atmos soundtrack that is absolutely
absolutely.
Awesome.
It's it was like watching the film again, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it totally was. Yeah, it was watching it and on those sound systems. I think on the
all right. Let's just rub it in.
Close as I want to get to being on Omaha Beach.
Whatever. Right. TV shows of the month. I'm going to be controversial here. Westworld Season 2. From a slow start, and I finished it last night. Brilliant. I loved it. I thought it was great.
I haven't watched the last episode yet. It's been okay. It's introduced some interesting ideas. I still think Humans is the better series. I think the Humans does a better job on a much smaller budget. But it did pick up after the beginning. Westworld, I mean. It did start to get more interesting and introduce some interesting ideas.
Yes, so some of the ideas towards the third act of this season have been really like, oh yes, I want to explore this more, tell us more, and the jumping around of the timelines. I thought sort of mid-season I was starting to, oh come on, I'm starting to lose where I am, but then it all like everything like this, it all starts to tie itself together again towards the latter stages of the season. So yeah, for me, big thumbs up. Yeah.
Also, I think I said in the previous podcast, I felt it was missing a certain character, but his return does make it more interesting.
Yes, absolutely. Right. So, anybody else got TV shows that they want to put forward?
I've barely been watching anything.
Yeah, same here.
But that's the nature of the weather. That's the nature of the fact that I don't have Sky anymore, and I find terrestrial television to be quite depressing. But I did finally get around to watching the Toys That Made Us thing on Netflix.
It's really good, isn't it? I finished that season, so it's really good.
What's the... Oh, God, I should have noted this. What's the name of the Netflix series that deals with the downfall of people? It has Volkswagen and that pharmaceutical bloke. Dirty Money.
Yeah, first thing you brought up, Dirty Money.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm having a different time of it. Ironically, the VW one, it's pretty good. But there's one about a racing driver. I can't remember his name because I'm sort of doing this off the cuff. Just watch it. Each of the 6 documentaries, they're genuinely brilliantly done. A really interesting and compelling watch. I've done quite a few of them.
So you've got Hard Knocks, which is obviously the one about Volkswagen's clean diesel thing. You've got Payday, which is about the lifestyle of a car driver, Scott Tucker.
That is absolutely brilliant. And if you don't end up wanting to smash his face against a pavement by halfway through, then you're a worse human being than me.
Yeah, and then there's loads of them. There's like Drug Shot, Cartel Bank, Maple Syrup Heist. Oh, that sounds interesting. What else? 6 episodes. So there's a Confidence Man, which is Donald Trump something or other at the end as well. So there you go. I'll give that a watch, Ed.
It's really good. Really enjoyed it. So yeah, that's my contribution. Oh, and I'm still enjoying Taskmaster. It's still done on a budget of 8p, and it's still brilliantly funny. So there you go.
Okay, good stuff. Whatever happened to the Forged thing, the thing where they make the swords and that kind of... It just seems
Forged in Fire?
Yeah,
well, I don't know. I don't have History Channel anymore. I believe it's somewhere down the dial on Freeview. I did accidentally bump into it the other day. But as I say, as you might imagine, watching standard def Freeview on a 55-inch 4K television that's a sad experience. Let's ignore everything else. It's just looking at it and going, yeah, that's not great.
Okay. Mark, what have you been watching?
I've been watching Staircase on Netflix.
What's that?
It's a true crime documentary about a chap who was accused of murdering his wife. She was found at the base of the stairs. And I'm pretty sure it's the same one that was on BBC many moons ago. But it's been updated because there have been certain things that have happened with the case, so not giving away anything. But the original episodes still stand up as absolutely fantastic, kind of compelling viewing. It's the French filmmakers originally wanted to make it about the American justice system, and so they started following the prosecution and the defense. But I think the prosecution decided to kind of nix that fairly sharpish. So it really just kind of follows the defense and all the different aspects of, forensic evidence and things like this. And there's a kind of key moment halfway through where there's a kind of twist, and then the lawyer says to the filmmakers, now you've got a film, and it just kind of keeps spiraling. There are so many different little twists and turns that if it was written as a thriller, you'd say it was getting a bit ridiculous. It's been kind of expanded because of recent events. The last few episodes do feel more like filler. It's clearly got that air of filmmakers who've come back to a subject many years later, so it doesn't have the kind of tight editing and it doesn't have as much content. Give you at least a sense of closure, but the original story of the case is what, if you haven't seen it before, you really need to watch it, because you will kind of go back and forth over your ideas of whether he's guilty or innocent, and it's just, absolutely compelling viewing.
Okay, good stuff. And to wrap up, Steve, what do you think?
Right, so apart from Humans and Westworld, which we mentioned, I've been quite enjoying the third season of Versailles. I suspect they have now deviated massively from historical accuracy because it involves the man in the iron mask, but it's still good fun and full of French naughtiness. We've got Preacher.
They do have the two historians.
Not anymore.
At the end.
Not on season 3. Not? No, that's why I'm thinking they've obviously got that. They used to have, at the end of each episode, they used to have the two historians trying to explain what had happened in it. Is that actually this really did happen? It's not just us making stuff up. But now they've disappeared, so I'm thinking now they're just making stuff up. Yeah. But anyway, it's still fun. I still enjoy it. Preacher started on Amazon, which is great fun if you haven't seen it. Executive produced by Seth Rogen, based on my comic book, with Dominic Cooper, which is great fun and very irreverent. And Luke Cage is back on Netflix, so if you're into your Marvel TV series, and this is the 5th Marvel TV series this year so far, and I know there's at least one more to come, so I'm struggling to keep up with this stuff at the moment, because I'm also trying to watch Cloak and Dagger on Amazon at the same time. But for me, the series only just started. The first episode was on Sunday night, I think. It's a 3 or 4-parter, but it's a year in the New York Times press office newsroom, in the New York Times newsroom during the first year of Trump's presidency, and it is riveting viewing, and in a time when the press has never been more important and are there to hold politicians, particularly Trump, accountable for what he does and says. It is absolutely riveting viewing.
That was fantastic.
That was fantastic, wasn't it? So that would be my recommendation if you want to make your blood boil. Watch that.
What was the last one, sorry?
It's called what's it called? I've got its name now. It's this documentary. They spent a year in the newsroom of the New York Times during Trump's first year as president. So you see them reporting on him and fact checking and dealing with all of his lies and trying to combat his. But
it comes across exactly as you'd expect a drama about a newsroom to come across. No, it's very kind of West Wing. Kind of Aaron Sorkin walking and talking, and all these little confabs and stuff, and
really good.
Yeah,
it's real. It's all real.
And
but there's a moment halfway through where Trump calls one of the reporters, and so she's just got like a call with the president, and it's very surreal at moments.
Well, there was a documentary on about Trump earlier in the year. It was a 4-part on Channel 4 that was really interesting, because there was a whole sequence during one of his divorces where one reporter, one of the newspapers, she did a story about it, and then she gets a phone call from someone claiming to be Trump's one of his assistants, telling him about how this wasn't true and this happened and he's a great lover and a really good and it was clearly Trump. It was his voice. You knew you could recognize it. It was obviously Trump ringing up this reporter to give her some bullshit. Unbelievable. And this is the kind of same thing, isn't it? So now he can't. It's got to be. It's the president on the line. But yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. And you just sit there thinking, how did we end up in this situation? It's
and where can I find this to watch?
On BBC. It's on iPlayer. BBC 2 Sunday nights.
Okay, right. I'm off to watch it.
Yeah, no. There's only one episode so far, so you got one to watch. But highly recommended.
Right. What's this bit a bit solo?
Well, I was but I've probably got too much time on my hands. But I was reading every time one of these Star Wars films come out, there's an art of book. The art of Force Awakens, the art of Last Jedi, the art of Solo, and I always find them quite interesting because they quite often give you an insight into the creative process. So, for example, the art of the Force Awakens has quite a lot of art what they did based upon Lucas's original concept for the new trilogy. So you get there's stuff about two siblings in his version, and obviously became Kylo and Rey, but they were very different. They evolved into different characters, but they were actually more like siblings at the time. There was also stuff involving Anakin coming back, Anakin's Force Ghost, flicking between Vader and Anakin, and this sort of stuff. Interesting ideas, more interesting than they actually did in the original film, but there's all this stuff in there. And the same with Last Jedi, there was some stuff at the beginning of that book where they had artwork for the Lost Jedi temples, again, that came from Lucas's original concepts. So I was reading the one for Solo, and it's quite funny because they deliberately avoid mentioning any names. So they don't mention Lord or Miller, and they don't mention Ron Howard. They just talk about the filmmakers or the directors. But there's obviously loads and loads of artwork and design stuff that was all done by Lord and Miller, because that was all pre-production stuff that was done before the film was made. But throughout the book, they actually list when scenes were shot. So when a scene shot, where it was shot, and the exact dates. So because they did that, I could go through the book and actually work out what was shot and when and by whom. So I did. And so I should warn you now, there's a degree of spoiler here.
Yeah.
Because
Who decided, just tell me, who decided to throw the lightsaber?
No, I'm not talking about... this is for Solo.
Solo.
Oh.
So, because Solo,
right,
they sacked the directors, yeah? And when the film came out...
Okay, before we go any further, if you don't want to know any spoilers or whatever, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Right, Steve, on you go.
So when the film came out, they were talking about, Ron Howard had reshot 70-80% of the movie. Hardly any of it was more Lord and Miller. It's mostly Ron Howard. Bollocks. Absolute bollocks. Because I can actually list exactly who shot what and when. So the film starts on Corellia, yeah, which is his home planet. Almost all of that was shot by Lord and Miller. The only thing that was shot by Howard was the scene with the Madame Proxima white worm thing. That was Howard. But the rest of it, Lord and Miller or second unit, because obviously the second unit shot the chase sequences with the speeder bikes and that sort of stuff. So that's all Lord and Miller. Then they go to, he joins the Empire and fights in Mimban. That's that battle scene, Phil, where it's all muddy and everything. That was all shot by Lord and Miller. Then they go to, he has the card game with Lando and that sort of stuff. A lot of that was shot by Lord and Miller. Some of it was reshot by Ron Howard. Basically, the scenes with Ron Howard's brother, I'm pretty sure that would have been Ron Howard. Then they go off and do the train heist. All that was shot by Lord and Miller. And the stuff they shot on location in the snow and the Dolomites in Italy, that was Lord and Miller. Then we get on to Kessel. Now, Kessel was shot by... They hadn't shot that when they sacked them. So that was shot by Ron Howard. So he shot all the Kessel stuff. And then all the stuff on Dryden Voss's spaceship, that's all Howard, because they hadn't shot that stuff yet. And that's why they had to recast, because they pushed back the shooting into August rather than July, and the actor was supposed to play the part, couldn't do August, so they had to get in Paul Bettany. So that was shot by Ron Howard. And then all the stuff at the end are on Savarine, I think the planet's called, with by the beach with the coast and everything. Again, that's all location stuff. That was all shot by Lord and Miller. So by my reckoning, Lord and Miller shot for 67 days, second unit shot for 9 days, and Ron Howard shot for 35 days. So I'd say a good half the film, if not more, was actually Lord and Miller in the end. But obviously, you could probably say, well, second unit's not them. Special effects sequences like space stuff and that's not Lord and Miller. So maybe they managed to get the amount of footage they actually personally oversaw down below 50%, so that Ron Howard can get the credit. But yeah, a lot more of the film is Lord and Miller than I originally thought when I saw it at the cinema. In fact, I'd say a large percentage of it is. So it suggests that they obviously maybe they were doing lots of multiple takes and some were more comedic than others, but the film didn't feel overtly comical or badly made in any sense. So I find it interesting that I guess it's always that thing, isn't it, when they change directors, who did what. And it sounds like a lot more of it was Lord and Miller than I thought. Okay, well, if anybody cares about that, I'm sure you've just given them some ideas to look at. But when I went to see the film, Steve, I really wasn't thinking about who shot what and or who shot first. I really wasn't thinking of that at all. When I went in to see it, it's not something that I took any sort of real interest in, to be honest with you. So I did because obviously placing directors happens quite frequently, but normally it happens very soon into the film. If someone gets replaced, either a director or an actor, like in Back to the Future. Back to the Future, yeah. That's an unusual one because they sacked Eric Stoltz 5 or 6 weeks into production, so they'd shot quite a lot of the film at that point. Yeah. And I'd love to see that footage. So some of it was on. I've seen little snippets. Yeah. But you could presumably put together a hour cut, of the stuff he shot. And this is the same kind of thing where something happens so late into production. They basically shot 2/3 of the movie when they were sat.
So basically what they've done is Ron Howard's come in and he's changed the tone, basically. He's shot what needed to be shot, but he's changed
he's basically
a lot of it's
finished what
changed
they
the tone.
shot.
Yeah.
He finished what they hadn't shot, which is essentially the Kessel stuff and Dryden Voss stuff, because they hadn't been done yet. And he's reshot bits and bobs to fine-tune the film. And presumably, in the edit, he selected takes that shot by Lord and Miller that were more in keeping with the original script and less comedic. If what we've heard is to be believed. But it still surprised me that actually, the majority of the film is really their movie still. So I just found it interesting because, like I kind of, because of what was announced, what was said before the film opened about him doing 70% of it, I thought, he must have reshot the whole film. Yeah. But he didn't reshoot the whole film. That's just not true.
Yeah. And anybody else on the podcast interested in this?
No, but this is a level of interest in film that I just, we've established over the years that I've been doing this that I struggle to get anywhere near. So I admire Steve's commitment to the cause. I just don't understand why he bothered.
Yeah, I think he's had far too much time on his hands recently.
Is Botwright buggered off because he doesn't want to hear any spoilers?
No, I've just tuned back in.
Well, there you go.
So sounds like you bought a Star Wars book and hit your espresso machine very hard, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, what were you doing reading that when you had the audio systems that you've had in recently? I mean, I'd be sitting watching films, not sitting reading books.
Well, I did a bit of both.
But the way you described the Trinnov, it sounds like in a few days it'll become self-aware anyway.
Yeah.
And where did this rebellion start? In a home cinema room.
Yeah, it's funny you should ask that.
I do live down the road from Skynet Drive, where Skynet, our satellite defense network, is actually based. So,
my brother used to live very close to Electric Avenue, and that was worth it just for the sheer joy of it being Electric Avenue. So, yeah, I'm on that bombshell.
Yeah. Thanks, Ed. That's it for the podcast this week. Thanks to Steve Withers.
I'll die unless you kill me.
Ed Selley.
He's a goddamn invisible man.
And Mark Botwright.
Whatever happened, I'm sorry.
Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook, bookmark AVForums for latest reviews, news and videos. Plus, why not leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes, but only if you enjoyed the show. I'm Phil Hinton, thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.